Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to be starting in 2 minutes. Welcome to the John Molson School of Business and Admit Master Refresher Lunch and Learn. We would love to know a little bit more about where you're coming from and where you are in your studies. So we've just launched a quick poll. If you can please answer these questions, we would appreciate it. And then just 2 minutes, and we are going to be starting. We want to you to be back to what you're doing at 1 p.m. So we want to start on time and finish on time. Well, now, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It just turned 12 o'clock. My name is Sergey, and I'm a president of a company called Admit Master. I'm very happy to also welcome here today our co-host, Abigail from the John Molson School of Business. And since we're going to be focusing on the GMAT, which is essentially a way to help you get into a business school, we thought what great way to start the seminar today would be to hear from Abigail, who is going to share a little bit more about what the application process in general looks like and how does the GMAT fit into this process. So I will give a floor now to Abigail, who's going to share these admission tips and strategies with you, and then I will take over again and I will share with you some of the GMAT math strategies. So please help me welcome Abigail.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. You are in the right place. This is a fantastic first step or continuing on your journey to prepare for business school, whether that be in the incoming session or down the road. I'm really happy to be here today with Admit Master to tell you a bit about the John Molson School of Business at Concordia, as well as our MBAs and just in general best practices application-wise. So with that, I'll get started. My name is Abigail. I am part of the graduate student recruitment team here at Concordia. My email is right here on this slide. If at any point you have any questions about your application best tips or questions about our program, please feel free to email me as you navigate this practice. So who are we? We are located right in the heart of downtown Montreal. We have beautiful state-of-the-art buildings and facilities that you would have access to as an MBA student. We're directly connected to the metro network here in Montreal, which in February is pretty great. You don't have to go outside as part of your commute. And it is a beautiful area with views of the mountain. We are ranking should not be the only reason that you make your decision, but we are ranked very well. We're accredited by the AICSB, which is considered to be the gold standard for business schools. We were the first university in Canada to be parity certified at the gold level by Women in Governance. And Bloomberg Business Week ranked us the second best business school in Canada just this last year. The John Molson community is wonderful, robust, and very committed to your success as a student and as an alum of our program. There are 300 plus faculty members from around the world. We have 51,000 alumni, and the 5,000 of those are at the MBA level. You just see. So there are many aspects that you should consider when you're deciding what MBA you should look at. Is it your career goals? Are you trying to make a career switch? Are you looking to move up into a leadership role? Are you trying to go out on your own and have your own sort of entrepreneurial pursuit? Is there a specific job in mind that requires an MBA? How advanced are you in your career? Do you have X amount of experience? Do you have management experience? Is there a really specific industry that you're trying to break into, move up in? How much time do you have to dedicate to your studies? This could be balancing work and studying and a family or whatever might be in your life. Are you looking for a part-time program, a full-time program? What sort of flexibility are you looking for? And then what's your ideal learning method? Is it experiential? Is it more lecture traditional? And are you hoping, really important, are you hoping to continue working? And how does that balance? And you really want to find something that meets all of your expectations. And it might be here at Concordia, and hopefully it is. If not, it's going to be elsewhere. But this is important for you to look at no matter what school you are considering. So for our MBA programs, I'm just going to see. We offer 3 MBA programs here at Concordia. There's the traditional part-time, full-time MBA, which I'm going to be talking about in more detail shortly. We offer the executive MBA and an MBA in investment management. So those second 2 are private programs. And here on my slide, you can see some stats about these programs. The average age differs. And this is due to there's different requirements for the programs. So the executive MBA requires a minimum of 10 years of work experience. The average is about 13, as well as 5 years of managerial experience, and the average is 7. The part-time, full-time MBA has an average age of 28. We require 2 years of postgraduate full-time work experience, and the average is about 6. The MBA in investment management has cumulative work experience required, and that average is about 4, and that has an average age of 26. People come to the MBAs for lots of different reasons, like we discussed previously, for when you're looking for the right fit. Many are looking for career switches or to advance in their careers. The MBA in investment management is highly specialized in finance, and it is designed for you to be working towards your CFA while pursuing your MBA. So the John Molson MBA, we say we're practical, flexible, and experiential. The program is a case-based curriculum. It's really designed for you to be ready for whatever the industry, the real world outside of the university has to offer. It's flexible. We have daytime and evening courses. It's not a cohort program, so you will be setting your schedule. And experiential means learning by doing, and we recognize that learning by giving you credits. So you can earn credits by doing, which we can talk about in a moment. So the experiential path, there's competitions, there's experience, there's exploring, there's lots of case competitions at John Molson. It is a very fantastic part of the John Molson community. There is specific in investment management, the MBA case competition. It's the biggest and largest in the world, oldest as well, and it's hosted here in Montreal. You can also travel and be part of other competitions. There is the Community Service Initiative, where you are helping local nonprofits with issues that they might have, and you're working to address those problems, whether it be creating an operating budget or ensuring that their governance, their board of directors is up to standard. And then you can, while there are required courses you take, you can then specialize further or explore more in the elective courses that are offered. So what companies hire our students? As you can see here, it is a wide range of companies across many different industries that are sort of spanning here locally in Montreal and Quebec, as well as across Canada and globally. There's the financial industry as well as many others. So it really is, it's what fits for you. So diving into the application, our application requirements are a bachelor's degree with a 3.0 or higher on a 4.3 scale. We require work experience. Like I said, it's 2 years of full-time postgraduate experience. This means that co-ops, internships, or work completed during your bachelor's degree does not count for this requirement. You would submit your CV as part of your application. We require a statement of purpose of 500 words about, 3 letters of reference. This can be academic or professional. English proficiency tests, which you can view on the website to see what scores and tests we accept. And the GMAT, which is why you're here today. We always say that lawyers have the LSATs and business schools have the GMATs. And this is how you are showing your academic ability to succeed in graduate level business studies. So if we can quickly talk about these elements in a bit more detail. Your bachelor's degree, you submit your transcript. It can be your unofficial transcript at the time of application. And then this can be in English or in French. If it's not in either of those 2 languages, you would need to submit a certified translation. Your CV or your resume, we want it to be a detailed resume, which means you're submitting the month and the year of your past work experiences. Really show, if you've been at the same company for years, show your progression, your growth, if your responsibilities or role has changed through the time at that role. And for your statement of purpose, it is really your chance to show us who you are. Outside of your transcript and your CV, you're a complete person. Why are you interested in an MBA? Why now? Why at John Molson? So make sure you've done your research, know what is offered at the business school here. What do you want to be part of? What organizations, student groups, courses really excite you and you think you can add to that community? Some tips about this: make sure to proofread it. Typos are not a great look. Please don't address it to the wrong school. Talk about a program we don't offer. None of that is the best foot forward in terms of your application. Your 3 letters of reference. You're submitting, it can be academic, professional, or a combination, and you really want someone who knows you, who can talk about your ability to succeed in graduate level studies, in your work ethic, in your plans for the future. How does this align? And this can be a direct supervisor, a past supervisor, a previous professor. It cannot be anyone who reports to you if you are a manager, or anyone that you are related to. Obviously, there would be some conflict of interest and power imbalances there. But again, should be someone who knows you personally, has worked with you personally. You don't want to just ask maybe the highest person at your company, a director, president, some role for their title, because they won't know you very well. And we really want this to be a personal response. So our application review admissions process is holistic, and that means they're going to look at all aspects of your application, all the components together in order to make their decision. This means that one element will not sort of get you thrown out of the ring, but you really do want to be submitting the strongest application you can to make sure you're a competitive candidate for our program. So a quick look at our deadlines, which are fast approaching. For this fall term, international students have until March 1st to apply, which is just a little under a week away. June 1st for Canadian citizens and permanent residents for the fall. And then for winter 2026, international students have till June 1st and Canadian citizens and permanent residents October 1st. That said, applying early is always encouraged. It gives you time to plan and get ready to embark on graduate level studies, which is always exciting. Here are our tuition fees. This is for full-time studies. So for Canadian citizens or permanent residents who are Quebec residents, it's about $7,700 for the entire program. This means as a full-time student, it's 2 years. Part-time studies, which is available for Canadian citizens and permanent residents. For Quebec, it would be about $9,700. Again, for the entire program, this is not per year. For Canadians, citizens or permanent residents from outside of Quebec, from the rest of Canada, it's $21,700. Again, the entire program, not per year. And then international is only available as full-time, and that is $53,500. As you can see, the JMSB, the John Molson full-time, part-time MBA is one of the most affordable AACSB accredited MBA programs in North America. It's a fantastic return on investment. You're getting a wonderful experience, access to these great resources in the alumni network. And since it is a public subsidized program, you are getting an affordable rate. I see a question in the chat. Can you apply before completing the GMAT? So you can start your application. It's called progressively adding to it. You can start your application, submit some things, and then come back to it and add your GMAT score and your English test scores. Maybe your statement of purpose once you have time to write that. But your application will not be reviewed until everything has been submitted. So you can open it and progressively add things, but you would need to get everything in order for it to be reviewed. If you have more questions about our programs, there are 3 upcoming events that might be of interest to you. In just a few weeks in March, we're having an Explore John Molson's MBA Programs event. It's going to be in person with alumni panels. The program directors are going to have a panel, and it's a great way for you to get your questions answered, see which MBA is the right fit for you, and hear from people in our network about their experiences and how their MBA has helped them in their career. In April, we're having an MBA in Investment Management info session to hear more specifically about that program, the admission requirements, the return on investment, and what the MBA CFA combination looks like. And then again in April is our next part-time, full-time MBA information session, which will be a sort of more detailed version of this quick presentation, a quick run-through. See another question in the chat. So you should look on our website about our exemptions for the English language tests. But there's a list of countries, which includes Canada, that you would not need to submit a language test if you completed undergraduate or graduate studies at. But just make sure to check that on our website. So if you have any questions, again, my email is gradadvisor.jmsb@concordia.ca, and I'd be happy to answer them whenever they might come up as you continue your application process. And like I said, the holistic admissions approach means that all aspects of your application are going to be considered, and that includes the GMAT. So making sure you have a strong GMAT score can really boost your application as a stronger candidate, and can help to maybe increase if you have a lower GPA from a past bachelor's degree. It will help you to show as a well-rounded candidate. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass it back over to Sergey, and best of luck to all of you as you continue your research or your applications, no matter what stage you're at of this process. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abigail. Thanks for sharing these tips. And definitely, I would like to encourage everybody to get in touch with Abigail directly and review your profile and talk more about the application process. As you could see, People who work for the admissions offices are very friendly. Their job is to help you make the best decision. So please do definitely don't hesitate to apply and to connect with Abigail first directly. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sergey. I'm a president of a company called Admit Master. I'm also a GMAT instructor. So for the next 43 minutes or so, I would like to share with you some of the tips and strategies of how you can actually do really well in the GMAT. And what I'd like to encourage you to do, I know it's lunchtime and you might be having your lunch at this point. So some of the things I'm going to show you will get you a little bit outside of a comfort zone, and that's okay. What I'd like to ask you to do is, though, participate, listen actively, take some notes, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions to think about and a couple of questions to work on, the real GMAT questions. So please grab a pen and paper, and remember that what lies just outside of your comfort zone is a learning zone. So if you're feeling slightly uncomfortable, all that means is that you are learning, and this is really a great place to be, and that's where I would like for you to be in the next 40 minutes. So let's begin by looking at the GMAT question. This is a fairly typical problem-solving question that you're going to see on the quantitative reasoning section of the GMAT. I will give you about 30 seconds to read it and try to make sense of it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this question could be a little bit confusing. Please let me know in the chat box how many times have you read it so far. I have only given you about 30 seconds. And let me know if you would like to see the options, the actual answer choices. By the way, I do see everybody's chat, so in case you don't see other people putting anything in the chat box, that's okay. This is, again, done for privacy purposes, so you can share any of the information, any personal questions that you'd like. Okay, yeah, so some of the people are saying, yeah, I would love to see the answer choices. So here they are. Here are the options. Let me know in the chat box if you feel that the options really help, or maybe you feel that they made the question even more confusing. Okay, yes, some people are saying they help, and some people are saying, yeah, they make the question even more confusing. So definitely what we would like to see in the options are some numbers, right? But when you see these variables, when you see these formulas, that's what definitely makes the question even more confusing. So how do we usually do these questions? And I can tell you that when we interview here at Admit Master, some of the new instructors who come to us and say, I've scored very highly on the GMAT and I would like to teach other people, then we would give them some questions to work on, and we are actually going to see how they think. And this is one of the questions that we usually give them. And here's what they would usually do. They would say, okay, well, I know that there is a formula that says that distance is equal to speed times time, or rate times time. Unfortunately, we have two different speeds. So there is speed there and a speed back. But we only given a combined time. But not to worry, we can build a few equations and try to then combine them and perhaps solve for some of these variables. And then usually of these people we interview, about 3 or 4 minutes later, or sometimes 5 minutes later, they're going to come back and half of them are going to get this wrong. And somebody who maybe hasn't yet studied for the GMAT or done really well on the test, they will at some point just give up, because the question does get progressively more confusing and more difficult. And to solve this system of multiple linear equations is actually not that easy. So the question you might be wondering is, how do I actually answer this question? What are the proper steps that I actually need to take? That's what many people ask. And then what they would usually do is they will look at the back of the book, and the back of the book, which is the place where you can see the explanations, will continue going and essentially explain all of these steps to get to the correct answer. And then many people usually say, okay, finally I got it. So now I can definitely do that myself, right? Is that how things usually work? Maybe not necessarily. So what we might need to do instead is look at a different approach. So instead of doing what we've always done, and perhaps what we've learned in high school, maybe we should start approaching these questions the way that is going to help you get a really high score on the GMAT. Let's call it the mastery way, and I'll explain why we call it the mastery way as opposed to the theory way. So what is that way? What's that other way? What's that kind of out of the box way of thinking? Well, it all starts by the basic understanding of what are the relationships of different things here specifically in these math questions. And this relationship here is a relationship between distance, speed, and time. And as I'm sure you probably all know, ladies and gentlemen, when we want to find the distance, we multiply speed by time. That's just common sense, right? If I were to, let's say, drive from Toronto to Montreal, and I know I am driving at 100 kilometers an hour and it takes me 5 hours, I know the distance is 500. I would never say that the distance is something else, right? So I wouldn't have any, let's say, way to maybe add these two numbers, right? I know this sounds very strange, right? How can you add 100 kilometers an hour to 5 hours? Like, what are you going to get? 105 what? You know, apples, oranges. This is not the same thing, right? So this is kind of more of a high level understanding is something that can help you get to the answer a lot quicker. Because look at the answer choices. You would notice that some of the answer choices are trying to add speed, x or y, to the time t. For example, answer choice B. How can you add speed to time? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, on the GMAT, it certainly would still not make any sense. And then let's take a look at some other answer choices that do that. Answer choice D tries to add speed and time, so that is certainly not something that we should do. And answer choice E does the same thing. So now we're down to two answer choices. We have A and C. Obviously, only one of these answer choices is going to be correct. So what I can do now at this point is just look at either one of them and try to see if it's correct, if it's the right answer. If it is, that's great. If it's not, that's also great, because then I will just choose the one that's left. So let's take a look at answer choice A. It says x divided by y times t. So essentially what they're trying to do is they're taking one speed, they're dividing it by another speed. What happens when you divide one speed by another speed? Well, you get some sort of a number that represents essentially a ratio of speeds, right? So it could be like number 2, right? Somebody's driving at 100 kilometers an hour, somebody else is driving at 50. So the ratio is 2, and then we multiply this by the number of hours, t. Do we get miles then in this case? No, we don't. We're actually going to get hours. We have a number multiplied by hours. We get hours. We need miles. So that is certainly not what is going to give us the correct answer. And the only answer choice that's left is C. Look how much math have we done. Yeah, not that much. And when I asked you, most people said that the answer choices make the question even more confusing. But in reality, the answer choices very often would give us information that many people miss. And that is why, by looking at the question from a little bit of a different perspective, we can spend a lot less time, get this question right, and also a lot less opportunity to actually make a mistake. Right? And I remember probably about 10 years ago when I, a little bit earlier in my career of teaching the GMAT, I remember I had a student, he had an engineering degree, and he came to the class and said, Sergey, I was very surprised when I took a practice test because I'm an engineer. I work as an engineer. I have an engineering degree, my bachelor's university degree. But when I tried to do the GMAT, I made so many mistakes in quant that this was actually my lowest score. And he came to the class, he said, I need a different way. I need to look at the questions from a different perspective, not as an engineer would do, but somebody who's more like a manager. And we started talking a little bit more about his goals of doing the MBA, and something that echoes what Abigail was saying is many people do an MBA to pivot their career, to give themselves more opportunities. And for this specific gentleman, he was saying, look, my manager is not an engineer. My manager has an MBA degree, but she's able to effectively manage our team of engineers, and she looks at the things from a higher level perspective. She's able to solve these problems, direct the work of the team, and participate in the team meetings, in sometimes higher levels meetings with senior managers. And he says, I want to be like her. And then 10 years later, he's actually now a manager at McKinsey and Company. So definitely, the MBA is something that can give you more options, more opportunities. So initially, many people do struggle with the GMAT, but what will help you get that higher score, ladies and gentlemen? And the answer actually lies in a different approach, again, to the GMAT. And we started talking about this a little bit more, and we're going to continue building on this. And this is actually the quote from the GMAT, the organization that makes the test. Here is what they say. The people who actually make the test, we are their partners. We help you essentially beat the test. They actually make the test, right? So you could think of them as people who give you a driver's license. We are the people who teach you how to drive a car really well, right? So here's the quote. They're saying, rather than testing your knowledge of business or any subject matter, this is actually something important that many people miss. That GMAT is not a test of knowledge. Unlike most other tests that we have ever done, most of the other tests we have been tested on how well we know something, whereas the GMAT is an exam that measures higher order reasoning skills. So it's essentially the test of evaluating how you think. And that's why the questions on the GMAT are confusing. They're tricky. Many people, I remember I had a student just a couple of months ago, she said, I've done so many professional exams, and every time I was told there are no trick questions. How about the GMAT? Is that still the case? And the answer is, it's actually not. Because most of those other tests evaluate how well you know something. Whereas the GMAT is different. It's trying to trick you, and it's trying to see how you're going to react. So you actually need to know what to do and how to react. You do need to have some basic knowledge of a few areas, but nothing very deep. This is not a test of math. This is also not a test of English. Again, it's a test of how you think. Right? So how do we actually develop these reasoning skills? Well, first of all, great news is that all people already have these skills. Just sometimes they're not yet at the level that will help us get a very high score. But just like any skill, that is something that we can develop. And that's why we need to start approaching this test and preparation for this test very different. Let me give you an example. Let me just use another skill. And maybe that's a skill of, let's say, swimming. So what a lot of people do is when they're preparing for the test, they're going to pick up a book, they're going to read the book cover to cover, try to memorize what's in the book, and then they show up for the test. Do you think that, for example, to compete in the Olympics for swimming or even in the world competition, people like Michael Phelps would, for example, just be satisfied by reading a book? Absolutely not. So what's required to develop this skill is lots of practice. But there's actually even more than practice. So what a lot of people do when they start preparing for the GMAT, initially they would say, let me load up on books. And they will get lots of books. They start reading them and saying, wow, that's very confusing. There's so many different things that I can possibly read from the book. And then somebody's going to say, no, that's not really what it's about. All you need to do is practice. Right? And if we practice, but we don't really know what we're doing, or we don't know a good strategy, then very often what's going to end up happening is that people just make lots of mistakes. Sometimes they are, they like injure themselves and so on. So somebody was saying, yeah, practice is nice, somebody in the chat, but how can we practice and improve? So I'm actually going to show you the exact way. There's a 3-step process of how you can do that, how you can practice and improve. Right? There's quite an important step or quite important steps that need to be done in a very specific order. And I can tell you that if you do that, if you use this strategy or these strategies I'm going to show you today, then you definitely can see very rapid progress. Very often I would hear people saying, I've been studying for years on the GMAT and I'm not seeing progress. And I'm saying, well, that hasn't been experienced of our clients. For example, here's Daria. She came to our class during the pandemic. And at that time, she wasn't really able to find a job. She just graduated from a bachelor's program. And she said, look, it's very difficult right now to find a job. And the economy right now is also not doing so well, as you probably know, with all the uncertainty and the looming tariffs and things like that. So everything comes in a cycle. So what Daria said at this point is it's probably a good idea for me to go and do a master's degree. And more specifically, she wanted to do a master of finance. But for that, you need a fairly high GMAT score. She took a diagnostic test. She scored not a very high score, honestly. 380 is like the score in the bottom 10%. And she said that that's not going to be good enough to get into my program. By really recognizing that GMAT isn't about memorizing formulas, but it's about learning, as she's saying here in her comments after our course, by learning how to think outside the box, by learning how to manage my time and stress, by learning how to think differently. Essentially, this is what we at Admit Master call here, think like a CEO. And I'm actually going to show you what it's like to think like a CEO. I'll give you another question that we're going to work on together. This is what really can help you get very good results within a short period of time. Of course, it's still going to require time and effort, and you still need to follow a plan to get to your score. But if you do that, you're going to be able to do really well. And just to give you a little bit of a idea of what Daria did afterwards. So she did actually graduate from a very prestigious Master of Finance program, and she was able to get a job as an analyst in a large infrastructure company. She actually now works in Amsterdam. So it definitely completely changed her life with that master's program. And it's only because at some point she said, I am not going to take no for an answer. And I'm not just going to be a statistics. I will actually, and I'll show you some of the statistics. She said, I know I can do well. I just need the right strategies and the right resources and the right support. So speaking about the GMAT, just to give you just a little bit of a perspective, I know some of you mentioned that you are just starting to look into the GMAT. The GMAT is an entrance test to get into business schools. It's a test that was created by business schools. It's a test that has been around for actually quite a long time. It's not a new test. It started approximately 70 years ago, and it evolved since then, obviously. And now it's in the 11th edition. This is a test you are going to take on a computer. It is not a pen and paper test. It is not possible to take it on paper. You can take it on a computer at home or go to a specially designed test center that's going to provide all of the technology for you to take the test. And it takes only 2 hours and 15 minutes, so not a lot of time. But interesting enough, this short test actually carries more weight for a business schools than your GPA, because this is something that's more current and this is something that's very standardized. So it allows the business school to compare you with others. And this is a test that's not used not just by the business schools and not just for admission. First of all, it is used in addition to admission for scholarships, for merit-based scholarships. And very often somebody with a higher GMAT score will get a significantly higher scholarship. Some of our clients, by the nature of them preparing the application, taking things seriously, connecting with the business school and actually getting a high GMAT score, were able to do their MBA program for free. And sometimes some of the tuition at the John Molson School of Business is certainly very affordable. Some of the other business schools are not so much. So sometimes these scholarships become really, really important. The GMAT is also used for recruitment. When companies come to hire on campus, they usually are not asking for your GPA in the MBA program. What they're asking for instead is the GMAT score. And let's say that you were to interview with some of the investment banks or maybe consulting firms. They will be asking the business school, who are the people with the highest GMAT scores? Show us their GMAT score. We will only interview people above a certain cutoff. Right? So that is certainly something that to keep in mind as well. If you are looking for scholarships as well as for more opportunities for recruitment, you should really target to get a score that's going to help you open more doors. Somebody was saying, can we take a GMAT test to assess where we stand before preparing for a real test? You absolutely can. In fact, what I'm going to do in the email as a follow-up to our seminar today is I will send you a diagnostic test, which will help you assess where you are currently. And it's going to give you a breakdown for each section, and it's going to give you the total score, 205 to 805. Because this is not a test of knowledge, but it's a test of how you think, you actually don't need to prepare for the diagnostic test. In fact, what I find is many people, after they begin preparing, there's so many different resources, and some of them are good and some of them not necessarily, that very often what ends up happening is initially, after you begin studying, your score on a test might actually go down from the initial diagnostic. Then eventually with the right resources, it will go up. So I would suggest that you actually go ahead and take the test right away. Now, what can you expect on the test? Well, the question that I have shown you already is called problem solving. You are given a problem, you're given 5 options, and supposedly you need to solve the problem. But as you have seen, we weren't actually solving it. We were finding the answer, and we used a little bit of our problem-solving skills. Right? Many people believe that in order to answer these questions, you actually need to solve the problem, and that is not the case. We often don't have the time for that. I will show you another question that is actually called data sufficiency question. That is a question that is simply asking you, do you have enough information to solve the problem? That's a very interesting question type. And it's very related to what you're obviously going to be doing as a manager, because managers don't always do the work themselves. Usually they don't. Usually their objective is to understand whether they have the right resources and then have the right plan to solve the problem. So that is what data sufficiency is assessing. So I will show you one of these questions today as well, since this is our mass refresher seminar. We also do offer free verbal refresher seminars where we talk about the questions that you will see on the verbal reasoning section. Just for the record, by the way, problem solving is from the quantitative reasoning, data sufficiency is from the section called data insights. They both deal with math. And then critical reasoning, reading comprehension is from the section called verbal reasoning. That is actually something we're going to do this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't registered yet, please go on our website and register admitmaster.com. And if you are in a time zone where it's very difficult for you to attend the class at 7 p.m. Eastern time, not to worry, you could still register and we are going to send you a recording. And so that's what you can expect on the test. Primarily, there's the main question types. There are some other question types as well that are less common, but they certainly do exist. They're commonly known as integrated reasoning question types. But what's important, ladies and gentlemen, for us to understand, especially in this very short seminar, is that this is a very accurate test. It's been designed to be fair. And even though it often feels like it's unfair, but it actually is, because it's the same for everyone. And it also uses what's called the computer adaptive algorithm, which means that it adapts the level of the questions to the way that you answer the questions. So this is how it's able to assess your score very accurately. In fact, they've done a lot of research, and people who continue taking the test without doing any more preparation will generally be getting the same scores, even though they go to see different questions. So because the test is adapting, what you need to do is you need to be able to deal with different types of questions, easy, medium, and hard, especially if you would like to get a higher score, because the questions will be getting harder as you go through the test. And if you want to get a high score, you do need to deal with harder questions. So that is why when you are trying to assess how you do on the GMAT, it isn't enough just to look online and do a couple of questions, just say, yeah, I feel that I'm doing pretty well on these couple questions or maybe 10 questions, because the reality is these couple questions might have been very easy, but then there are also questions that are very, very difficult. So that is why it's really necessary to take that adaptive diagnostic test. And I will send you the link to that test. This is the official test from MBA.com, and you'll be able to get an assessment of exactly where you stand according to this algorithm. Okay. And then you're going to be getting a score. And just for the record, as you may have heard, the GMAT scoring system has changed about a year ago. The scores used to be 200 to 800, and now the scores are 205 to 805. As you could see, the scoring isn't just adding number 5. The scale is completely different. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is when you are trying to evaluate what score do you need. And I hear this a lot. Somebody would say, I'm trying to apply to this school and the average score is 680 because maybe that's what they found on the website. Well, on the old scale, 680 is 83rd percentile, but on the new scale, 680 or 685 is 97th percentile. There's obviously a big difference between these scores. So when you apply to business schools, please do ask which scale have they used to actually show you these average scores. And this is what you're going to need. Okay. And again, what the percentile scores mean are how many people you beat, and you are being compared with everybody who took the test in the past 5 years. So now that we learned a little bit more about the structure of the test, I wanted to show you one more question, as I promised, the data sufficiency question that we're going to do together. And then we're going to spend the last 10 minutes or so talking about the resources and the overall way to structure your study plan so that you actually can practice and improve. So let me show you this data sufficiency question. And also with this question, I'll be able to demonstrate to you what do we mean by thinking like a CEO. So here's what the question looks like. You are given a passage that explains certain things and has a question to it. Right? So it actually looks very similar to the kind of question that we've seen before, the problem-solving question. The difference, however, is you are actually not able to solve it. With a problem-solving question, you actually can, and you actually can find the answer, and the answer is among the answer choices. Whereas in these questions, you actually cannot. You do not have enough information to answer this question. Something important is missing. And then the GMAT is going to offer you that information in the statements. And your objective isn't necessarily to answer the question. Your objective is to simply understand which of the statements would be sufficient to answer that question. And then based on your assessment, you'll be choosing an answer. And the answers to these questions are always the same. As you could see, they simply tell you which statement would be sufficient, either statement 1 alone, or statement 2 alone, or maybe you need both statements together. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I will give you 2 minutes for this question. During these 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to read the question, try to understand what do you really need? What's missing? Look at the statements and see if the statements are providing you what is missing. If they do, that statement would be sufficient. If they don't, it would be insufficient. You do not actually have to find the answer in order to understand this. You just need to be able to understand if it is possible for you to find the answer. And then I'm going to ask you to share your answer, A, B, C, D, or E, in this little poll that I'm going to launch right now. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. You have 2 minutes to try to find the answers to this question. Do your best, but please don't Google that question. One more minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it has been 2 minutes. I see that many people still haven't answered this question. It's obviously not perhaps a very easy question. So if you are just about to choose the answer, please do right now. And I'm going to close the poll in just 5 seconds. Okay, let me go ahead and end the poll. And let me actually share the results with you. Let me see if I can do this. It's just trying to tally up the responses. So we can see what everybody's answered, and then I will show you a couple of different ways of looking at this question. So as you could see, well, it looks like C is an overwhelmingly popular answer, which means I need both of these statements. And then very few people answered anything else other than C. So hopefully C is the correct answer, and hopefully it is really true that I need both of these statements to answer the question. So let us look at a couple of ways of looking at this question. First of all, this is a question from the official GMAT guide. So here's the official explanation. What the official GMAT guide will often do, and this is something that's very important to understand, is that there are different books for the GMAT. And the official guide is an excellent book that shows you what the previously offered questions looked like. It does not contain any questions on a current exam, but it does show you questions from some of the earlier exams that have been retired. But when it comes to the explanation in the official guide is really written not necessarily to help you find the answer in 2 minutes. It is written to help researchers and people who actually study this test and people who evaluate how valid is the test to understand that this is indeed the correct answer. Right. So very often, even though I've been teaching the GMAT for 15 years and I've scored in a top 1% on the GMAT, when I read these explanations, I get a little bit more gray hair because it's very difficult to understand these explanations. And it's certainly not the way that you would have time to do on the day of the test, because you have around approximately 2 minutes for these questions, and for these questions even less. So let's take a look at this question from a different perspective. Let's think like a CEO, ladies and gentlemen. What does it mean, think like a CEO? Think like a senior manager. In fact, in this question, it's actually quite easy to think like a CEO. Imagine you're a CEO of this store. And if you know a little bit about marketing, you probably understand that people don't like to buy things at the regular price, right? I mean, let me know if anybody likes to buy things on regular price. Let me know in the chat box. If that is something that, like, you go to the mall and absolutely, I don't like any sales, just, give me regular. No, nobody likes that, right? We all like to buy things on sale and save some money. So marketing 101 is you want to create a sale where people are going to feel like they're saving money, and this is what's going to entice them to make the purchase. And that's how the store also makes money, because if nobody buys anything, then the store obviously goes out of business. They have rent to pay and salaries and everything else. So here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, okay, well, you know what? We're going to have a BOGO sale. If you live in North America, you probably know what that is. Buy one, get one. And essentially means you buy one at the regular price, the second one is going to be discounted. So here's what they actually said. We're going to have this BOGO sale. And as the CEO of the store, I'm going to say, if you buy the second shirt, we are actually going to sell it to you at no profit. And here's what they said. The store makes the same profit from the sale of 2 shirts that makes from the sale of 1 shirt at the regular price. So we're going to make all of our profit from the first shirt. We're going to make no profit from the second shirt. What does that mean? That means that the second shirt is sold at cost. Whatever it cost me to buy from the factory, I'm going to sell this to you as my customer. That just means that the discounted price of the second shirt is equal to the cost of the shirt to the store. That's what that means, basically, marketing 101, ladies and gentlemen. So now the question was asking us, what was the discounted price of the second shirt? So at what level should we set the sale price? Let's see which of the statements are going to give us enough information to be able to say yes at this specific level. Let's look at statement number 1. It tells us the regular price was $16. That's interesting, but that's not enough, right? That's just the regular price. The question was asking, what's the discounted price? Unless they give me some more information, that wouldn't be enough. But let's take a look at statement number 2. It says the cost to the store was $12. Well, wait a second. We've actually been able to determine that the store is going to sell the second shirt at cost because they're making no profit. What does it mean, no profit? Revenue equal cost. So guess what? The question was asking us, what's the discounted price? Statement number 2 tells us that it was $12. That's exactly what I need. So guess what is the answer to this question? The answer is B, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, only statement 2 is sufficient, and we can actually answer this in just 1 minute. And this is, again, a different way of looking at these questions. And this is what the GMAT is trying to assess and evaluate. And that's why what this would require is getting a little bit outside of your comfort zone and a little bit of a different way of approaching these questions. Essentially, a little bit of rewiring your brain. And I can tell you, here's one of our clients. She came to us also, and I'm giving you slightly, older examples because I want to also talk about what happened afterward. Right, so Darini, she was actually from Montreal, and she came to us. She took our class in 2020, and then afterwards, what she actually told me before the class is that she has been trying to study for the past 4 or 5 years, and she was almost ready to give up on the GMAT. And then somebody just said, "Why don't you go and check out the Admit Master class?" One of her friends, and she came in and said, just to let you know, Sergey, I do not believe it's possible, but I want to give it my last try. And in 3 months, she was able to get a score of 700. She sent me an email saying, against all odds, she said, "This is impossible. I don't believe that this happened. But you know what? What I understand is that I've always been taking the wrong approach to studying. But now that I really look at these questions from a different perspective, I'm finally able to score well." And she actually graduated again from a very prestigious business school, and she now works for the United Nations. She was actually sitting without the job. She lost her job during the pandemic, and she's like, "I don't know what to do next." And now she lives in London, England, works for the United Nations, completely changed her life. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to, and I promised I'm going to show you a little bit of statistics and also talk to you about the plan going forward. So here's some alarming statistics about the GMAT. Approximately, 13 million people per year study for the GMAT, or at least do something to start preparing for the GMAT. Of these 13 million people, only 100,000 will actually do the test. So that's less than 5%. What happens to the rest of the people? They don't have the right plan. They give up. So how can you make sure that you do not give up? How can you make sure that you actually will succeed on this GMAT? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that there's no silver bullet. And sometimes you have to take what somebody might tell you or some advertisements on the internet with a little bit of a grain of salt. And I just took a snippet of one of the Google advertisements that said, if you take our class, if you subscribe to this class, I'm not going to tell you what company it is. You can probably find this out, but don't want to have any product placements of our competitors. So essentially, this is a self-study program. You can go and sign up, and it's very widely advertised. And it will say that an average score you can get is 730. What they actually don't say is that the reported score is not the same as everybody's scores, and only about 2% of people actually report these scores. So even though it is possible, it is actually not going to be easy, but it is possible. And anybody can do this. All we need is the right structure, the right strategies, and the right support. Anybody can do this, and anybody can achieve a very high score. Right? You need to really start thinking about this test as training for a sport, maybe training for a marathon, or maybe even learning how to drive a car. So let me give you an analogy, and this will help you build a study plan. If you were to learn how to drive a car, it's not enough just to read the driver's handbook. You do need to practice. But imagine if we were to try to practice without actually knowing how to do it. Obviously, that's dangerous. Right? So we need to take these very important steps. What are the 3 steps that we need to take? So please write this down. This is quite important. I'll try to remember this. Step number 1, you want to review the theory before you start learning the strategies. So reviewing the theory doesn't necessarily mean doing a bunch of questions and try to do them the long way. Reviewing the theory simply means there's an area of mass that's tested on the GMAT, and you need to be comfortable with that area. For example, you need to know what is a fraction, how to multiply or add fractions, how do you convert from a fraction to a decimal, what's a linear equation, what's a quadratic equation, things like that. That is something we usually recommend if you were to come to a GMAT class, that you actually do that before you come to the class. For example, if you were to sign up for our class, we are going to give you access to these resources first, because we want to make sure when you come to the class, it's actually an experience of doing things, driving a car, but it's going to be with the instructor's guidance, just like what you learned when you learned how to drive a car. There's going to be somebody next to you, and if you were to take our class, it's a fairly small class, usually about 10, 15 people. The idea would be that we will teach you how to do it. We will show you these best strategies, and we are going to see how you do them so that we can give you this feedback. Because let's just be honest, when you're trying to do something you've never done before, there's a very high chance you're going to make a mistake. And usually when I ask my clients, what's the chance? They usually say 100%, right? Because of course, if you've never done it, you probably are not going to be perfect at first. So you really need to learn how to do it first. And then you need to practice. Practice is important. Why? Because practice makes a habit. The more you practice something, the more it's going to become a habit. And when you practice something and it doesn't work, for example, if you continue making mistakes, if you take our program, you can always come back and ask for help. We give you a year to essentially get unlimited coaching with our program. At some point, you will also learn how to give yourself coaching, because that's going to be a very important skill as well. Right? But practice really only makes perfect if you first learn the theory, so you know how things work and you know the rules of the game. Secondly, you learn the strategies, all the shortcuts. And thirdly, you practice, recognize where things go wrong, and continue improving. So it's the process that will help you study very efficiently. And that's why many of our clients, when they would come to our program is 6 weeks long, and it's specifically designed for people who want very high scores. Somebody was asking, if I would like to get from 500 to 700 in under 3 months, how many hours would I need? So normally we suggest when you come to our class, during the 6 weeks of classes, you're going to be in a class twice a week. And we normally recommend approximately 20 hours a week, including time in class. Each class is 3.5 hours. As you could see, our next class starts on March 1st, which is this Saturday. And we could still save $100 with the early bird discount if you register by tomorrow. If you go on our website, admitmaster.com/offer, then you will see a link and you can register for this class by just making a deposit. What usually happens is that when you go on our website, we are going to call you back and we'll answer all of your questions. Right? So what we'll do is we will give you all the study materials. You're going to be in a class for 6 weeks. This is going to be a very intensive phase of learning. And then afterwards, we're going to continue supporting you. For example, you can retake our classes for free for 1 year. You're going to have access to all of the recordings. In fact, if you'd like to talk more, I just launched a quick poll. Just please let me know and I'll be happy to connect. We give you 3 personal tutoring sessions. We give you coaching all the way until you're done. So it's essentially, it's a program that gives you everything you need to prepare. Very often we're going to have clients who come to us and say, I'm looking for a tutor. And then they would realize that this all-inclusive program gives you so much more for a smaller investment. We do offer tutoring as well. We do also offer self-study options. And if you go on our website again at admitmaster.com/offer, you could see the different options. You can try different programs. You can try some demos. So I'd like to encourage you to go to admitmaster.com/offer and actually see what is available. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember that that is something that just simply requires the right approach, and anybody can do it. An average score of our clients is 615, which is the top 20th percentile. And that is quite a bit higher than the average worldwide. And also among our students, almost everybody, about 80% of the people will actually do the test. So if you try to think about, people who study by themselves, usually only about 5% of people will end up doing the test. And also getting a very high score obviously requires being better than many other people. But with the right structures program, your chance of success is much higher. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more just to see if this program is right for you, then I would love to connect. Our next class starts on March 1st. We still have a few seats available in this class, not a lot. So the classes are starting in only 5 days. So if you would like to join, then let's connect as soon as possible. Our next free refresher class is going to be actually this Wednesday on February 26th at 7 p.m. And there's a link I promised to share with you where you can actually get access to the practice test. So if you go to jmsb.trygmat.com, you can actually get that link, right? So you can even do this right now if you'd like. And you can see all of these things at admitmaster.com/offer. So ladies and gentlemen, we are just over 1 o'clock. So I want to wrap up the formal part of our seminar today. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, then please put them in the chat box or a Q&A box. I'll be happy to address them right now. If you need to go back to work right now, then please feel free as well. But it was certainly a pleasure to spend this lunchtime with you and give you some strategies and ideas of how to really prepare for the GMAT. And most importantly, give you a little bit of confidence that it's absolutely possible. And you can do that, even though it's a tricky test, it's a challenging test, and maybe everybody around you is saying it's so difficult that you shouldn't do it. The reality is you just need the right approach and you just need the right structure and the right strategies. And I can tell you, in my 15 years teaching the GMAT, I've been very privileged to work with thousands of people. Some of them come and say, I forgot everything. And some of them come and say, I have already a very successful career and I want to do even better. And I have seen so many people do really well in the GMAT that really there's no excuse not to, because this is just a small step towards getting into your dream business school. Somebody was saying, I see that you have another Master Fresh seminar on March 3rd. Should I attend this one as well? So on March 3rd, this is going to be a 2-hour seminar. So we're just going to be taking up more questions. The main things and the main idea of the seminar is going to be very similar, but we are going to have time to do more questions. That is why if you'd like to come to that seminar, then absolutely please do. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are trying to still decide at this point whether the MBA program is right for you, or maybe some master's programs, or maybe you just need to get some professional designations, or maybe just do more networking, or maybe do something completely different, then what we offer here at AdmitMaster are free 20-minute consultations. So if you would like to send us your resume, then what we can do is connect with you. You can choose time in the calendar that works for you. We can go over your resume, ask you some questions. Obviously, we can't make decisions for you. But what we could do is just share some perspective, share some of the things that you might want to keep in mind so that you can make the best decision for yourself. Because what we hear a lot from our students is, again, I've been doing this now for a long time. One of my clients, for example, is a CEO of a very large company called Staples Canada. And she was my client 10 years ago. She came to our GMAT class thinking about doing the MBA program. And just last year, when she actually got promoted to a CEO, I connected with her and congratulated her on this promotion. And I asked her whether that whole experience being in the GMAT class and doing the MBA was instrumental. Was it even important for her to become a CEO? And she responded that without the MBA, absolutely, she would not be able to do that. And of course, the GMAT was an important step. And she actually mentioned that I still remember, Sergey, how you taught us in a class to think like a CEO. And of course, I mean, she's now a CEO of a very large company. So this is your chance to not just secure admission to your dream business school, but this is also your chance to learn new skills that are going to help you in the future. And these are the skills that will help you not just succeed in the business school, but also succeed in other parts of your professional life. if you learn how to think critically, if you learn how to analyze information, if you learn to see what's important. And then when it comes to the verbal reasoning section, for example, when it comes to a verbal refresh seminar, we're going to show you how to analyze arguments, how to, again, look for what is the main point in the argument, how to look for support, how to properly create your own arguments. This is also really important in order for you to be able to negotiate and manage your time properly and pay attention to what's important. So these are certainly a lot of skills that are going to help you in many areas of your life, and that's why sometimes we get clients that come to our class who even don't need the GMAT, but they know that they need to get mentally ready for the MBA program. And they'll say, maybe the business school tells me that the GMAT is not required, but I want to do it anyway because I want to assure my success in the business school. And also, of course, the GMAT helps with the scholarships. So if I can get some additional funding for my MBA program, something I will have to pay back, that is definitely going to be a great investment of my time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank you for coming here today. It's been a pleasure spending this time with you. I look forward to connecting with you. I know many of you mentioned that you would like to chat one-on-one. So I will personally reach out to you, and I will send everybody an email, a follow-up email later today with the recording of this seminar. So please feel free to share it with your friends and watch it again if you would like. Please do sign up for our next refresher class this Wednesday. And if you'd like to chat, then send me your resume and we can connect and just talk a little bit about your personal goals, just to make sure that you, when looking back 10 years from now, whether you're going to be a CEO or anybody else who you want to become, you could say, I'm so glad that back then in 2025, I made this decision to pursue these important steps in my career. So good luck, ladies and gentlemen, all the best, and have a wonderful rest of the week.